I had a couple of heart songs I want to throw at you here.
Okay.
All right.
Go for it. Go for it. What is it?
Achy Breaky Heart.
I almost...
Recorded live from Studio 12A in sunny Phoenix, Arizona. You're listening to the Josh and Friends Podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to the Josh and Friends Podcast. I am your host. My name is Josh. And this week, I have a very special guest joining the program. I first met this person back at Central Washington University in 1997. And she was a fellow resident within the same dorm at Almonte Hall. Soon after meeting, I introduced her to friends off campus where we would partake in random activities such as ab workouts, dinner parties, and drinks on the weekends. After graduating, she took up a job at Nike in Oregon, and then later began training to become a police officer in Washington State. But on the very day of her test, she suffered a life-threatening health issue where she eventually found herself needing a heart transplant. Well, she is here today to discuss this amazing story of strength and perseverance, as well as some of the music that helped to inspire her journey along the way. So, without further ado, please help me welcome to the program, she is my friend, the one and only, Miss Aolani Glover. Aolani!
That is cheesy.
How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Now that we got this going here, it's nice to see you.
We're here. I can't see you with the phone there without my glasses, so I'm going to have my glasses. Sorry.
Whatever works. Whatever works for you.
I'd rather see than not.
How's the weather up in Seattle right now?
Still too hot for me, but it's not like Phoenix hellscape.
That's true. That's true. But you don't have the central air that
no, I have
that this place has.
No, I have portable AC, and it actually, believe it or not, being down in a lower level, it makes a big difference with like a half-buried basement situation. And I'm really close to the water, so
oh, good.
That helps. Yeah, like
nice.
It smells like, well, not always.
Which water are you close to?
Saltwater State Park.
Oh, okay.
So I'm between. That's why I was saying Kent-ish, like between Des Moines and Federal Way, literally.
Nice. Right on.
So,
right on.
That's where I'm at.
Well, hey, you got your coffee and you're all ready and set to do this. So let's go.
I am. What are you going to ask me? Because I'm terrified.
Well, yeah, don't be terrified. This is going to be fun. So, well, I mean, fun. Yeah. So I wanted to have you on because I think your story's amazing. And you may think different, but hey, not many people go through what you've gone through here. So,
true.
I've been told by a lot of people that, hey, man, you need to have Aolani on. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. You're right. I do need to have Aolani on.
Well, Aolani's too busy trying to make it harder for herself.
Well, so, all right, let's start from the beginning.
Oh, what's that?
Well, all right. So now I met you in college, but
yes.
Where did you, now you said you're in like the Des Moines area?
Mm-hmm. I was born at Swedish. I was born in Seattle. I'm
okay.
100% earned the whiteness.
There you go. There you go. Now, where did you go to school? Like, where'd you go to high school?
Kentweed.
Oh, Kentweed.
Kentweed.
Nice.
Woo! Actually graduated from there, but I went to private school before that. A couple of different ones because there's more background there, but basically my parents were part of a church when I was born. Church, I use the term loosely because it was a little bit culty.
Okay.
Not like well-known cults, but like a little culty, and got weird. Do you want to tell us the church? Sure. It was Community Chapel and Bible Training Center.
Okay.
And so I went to school there. My mom actually was a teacher there until the state cracked down on things like actual certification and people, there was some spouse swapping that started in the late 80s. And that kind of blew things up. So that's probably the most that's probably the nicest way to say it.
Okay. Now, do you have siblings?
I have no actual siblings.
Okay.
I have step siblings, and it's a good thing because the whole genetic situation, as we've learned, which took a long time, but we figured out that came from my dad's side, is not a good idea to have more kids. And it's a 50-50 deal. So, yeah, I'm the only one, and I was the first grandchild, so spoiled, but spoiled in a way that, like, I spent a lot of my time with old people.
Okay.
And probably more time with old people than with young people when I was growing up.
So you do you consider yourself an old soul?
What does that even mean?
Like, you like older, you like stuff that your generation isn't generally into?
Okay, well, here's the thing. Because of the culty church, we didn't have a TV until my parents split up.
Oh, so when was that?
So until I was 9.
Wow.
And so the first 10 years of my life, essentially, the only TV that I had was at my grandparents', and I didn't grow up with the typical cartoon. I didn't have Captain Crunch until Central. My first
sad.
bowl ever. No, I thought it was shitty, but that's okay.
It's all sugar.
It's all sugar and it cuts the roof of your mouth. No, literally, the very first bowl of Captain Crunch I ever had was at the dining hall at Central.
So what did you used to eat
with you guys? My mom made my food.
Oh, really? Okay.
Legit, like garden, like organic, like
dang.
There was a lot of weirdness, but also I was very loved, right? Like, and I was everything to my mom, right?
Yeah.
And she was weird, but she loved me, right? Like she was my mom. And then when my parents got divorced, we then went through a series of stepfathers and other husbands that were as well. Like kind of toss up on who was worse. But, not great. So my understanding of the world and relationships and religion and all of that stuff was very, very small, right? It was very insular. And I took myself from private school to good old Kent Weed as a sophomore and decided I needed to get a taste of the real world, which by the way, I didn't like. It's not as much fun.
Did you do anything there? Did you play any sports or anything, or were you involved?
Yeah, I had played, I'd run track and played, well, obviously basketball. That's a no-brainer. Tall. Being 6 feet tall and in high school, you kind of sort of can't.
Dang, I didn't realize that. You were 6 feet tall in high school?
Yeah, dude. Like,
wow.
Like I came out long and no, there was not coordinated, not necessarily talented, but tall and stubborn. So
I mean, that goes a long way. Really. The attitude and the height, right?
Like it's the fucking attitude. And no, for real. No, that legitimately was. And I also was never, I didn't get told no, right? Like I went from being the troublemaker in private school to being a nobody in public school. And I was working already at the same time because I wanted to have a car because I need to be able to drive away from the insanity at home. Right.
Yeah.
That legitimately, that was kind of the way it worked. So one of the things that, and I think I've told you, but I know I've mentioned it to the other guys, you and James and Ryan and Lee in particular, sorry, calling out names. But you guys were so protective of me in my first real adventure out into the world on my own, right? Like we met the first day we moved into the dorm. It was you across the way. And then getting to know them really allowed me to, honestly, I didn't know enough. I didn't know what I didn't know. And
that's what I love about, that's part of the thing I love so much about college. It was basically like everybody's, way of becoming an adult, essentially, just like, oh, wow, I'm like over here on my own. I got to figure stuff out. And
Totally.
you bring up, college. Now, what made you decide to go to Central?
Well, because my grades were shit. And
They're like, they're accepting everybody.
pretty much. Because I still at the time had a very steady, strong heartbeat. No, really, truly, I actually was going to work and do like a gap year. And then at the last minute, and I'd applied to a couple schools and I had done a couple of tours, and I have family in Texas, and I had thought about going to UNT. I'd done a tour there, and I almost did. Like, I got accepted there, and I got accepted at Central. And I was on the fence because there'd been kind of more family instability at the time. Like, didn't get to go on my senior trip because we needed to kind of take care of mom and the relationship that was blowing up at the time. God bless her and her shit judgment with men. No, there's a family joke that my dad was the best one that she ever found.
Oh gosh.
No, really. And trust me, like I said earlier, communication, not a strong point still with him. And I love him. He's my dad. But there was a lot going on. So a lot of kind of adult stuff as a child, but I got to be a kid, but at the same time, there was themes of things like spouse swapping and betrayal and people being upset with each other and being taught one thing, but then watching the adults in your life do the exact opposite, which is very confusing for a kid, right? And being a precocious kid, which I was, I taught myself to read. When I was reading and I went into kindergarten. And then, of course, my mom got called in like the second day because I was young. I started young. I graduated from high school when I was still 17 because my birthday's in August. So I was young. I was young and I was, woo. And not in a bad way, but again, in a way that I just didn't know what I didn't know. And I knew what I did know and have never been shy about saying it, as you know, as most people who've met me know, because it's going to come out of my mouth, whatever I'm thinking. But yeah, that's kind of how that all ended up. So, and in retrospect, I'm so grateful for the time that I had at Central because I was far enough away that I got a break from the family, but I could still get home. And then I was able to do things like go to Spain and, you know what I mean? Like travel,
yeah.
Study abroad, spend time with you guys, with my family, all of that. So,
So who's your roommate at Central?
My first roommate was, I don't know that I even want to say her name because I've totally lost track of her, but.
Then what does it matter?
Okay. No, here's the thing. Because I applied, or because I decided to come late, like I had been accepted, but I just kind of sat on it and I was working and then I got assigned to the dorm late. So that's kind of how it worked out. And the jock dorm at that, even though I wasn't planning to play sports and didn't play any sports in college. So her name was Krista, and she was a basketball player. She was a redshirt, actually, and she was from like Seattle, like went to Roosevelt, something like that. Really a sweetheart. But that's how I ended up in Almonte. That's where where I got put. That was where there was space. So, and that picture I sent you of you in. That was in my first dorm room. And again, like hanging out the windows, seeing people moving in, all of that stuff it just was so much fun for me. And it was so cool because I was ready for whatever.
Yeah. Do you by any chance remember my first roommate that I had?
Was it the weird guy?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yes, it was because I got assigned a roommate, right?
Same
so
thing.
like when I got there, I was like, I didn't know this guy. I was like, hey man, like how you doing? And he seemed normal, for the first 5 minutes,
12 minutes. Okay.
And then he's like, hey man, I got this side over here. And he's like, and I'm like, all right, I don't care what side I have. And he was like right next to the window and he positioned his computer right next to the window, and he'd always just be staring at the girls. And I'd be like, oh, man.
It's because we were alternating floors, right? It was alternating floors. So, like,
yeah.
Right?
So we were on the top, and you guys were on the top.
Right. Well, but it was opposite, right? It was that C shape, and it was opposite, and it was girl, boy, girl.
Yes.
Boy, girl, boy.
So when you look straight out, it's the girls, like, and we had the 3 windows. It was like, yours, and then Delana and Melissa, right?
Delana and Melissa, and then it was Jessica. Well, sorry, Jessica. We're not using last name. Jessica,
whatever. And
then Trina, the one from
I would see him just staring out the window, and then I'd be like, who the hell is he staring at? And then just people walking around and stuff, and then but I would see the girls like take the drapes and like shut them, and I'm like, God dang it, man, come on. No, I'm the weird guy. I'm the weird guy because I'm like associated with this guy. So so I one 100%. Night I've told this story before, but I think it's like hilarious just because I didn't drink before I went to Central.
Well, I had, but not like.
So, and they would have all these stupid like kind of things that they events that they would do at the dorm, right? And I got I was probably out boozing with Ryan.
Right.
And I came back. It couldn't have been that late.
There were
back.
Common room things, weren't there? We had they were like, hey, come meet.
Yeah, it was like pasted on the door. So like I took it off the door, and it was this little flyer and it said, and it had the calendar with all the little dates on it. And that specific day, I was like, hey, that's today. And it says, meet your neighbor day. And it was probably something where they had like downstairs where like, hey, meet your neighbor.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was like drunk enough and dumb enough. So I took this paper and I started legit knocking on every door in the dorm and saying, my name's Josh. How you doing? And it was like, they're like, hi. And I'm like, oh, no, this isn't that weird because it's meet your neighbor day.
It says it is. Like,
so, and it was funny because like some people you could see like, you could like see the peephole and like you could see someone look at the people and I'm like, and they would just like not answer the door, which is what I fully expected. but then there was like your floor. I specifically remember saying when you guys answered the door, I go, hey, I just want to let you know it's meet your neighbor day, but also I'm not a weirdo. My roommate is a weirdo. He's the creeper, and they're like, "Oh my God, you're the guy that is with that guy." And I'm like, "Yeah, but don't say I'm with him because I'm not by choice with him. I don't know him." So
100%.
That's how I became friendly with you guys, and I was like, "Oh, you guys are actually normal." Like, okay, that's cool. So then I started hanging out with you guys, and then I got to introduce you to Ryan, and then we brought you guys over to their place at Ryan and James's,
which was way better than the dorms because. Apartment where there was no RA and there weren't any freaking weirdo peepers.
Right. Yeah, you could like actually be yourself. Oh, this is like a like a normal like place. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah. No. That's 100% my memory too.
Yeah.
Do you remember doing 8-minute abs? Do you remember doing
I was just talking about this the other day where I couldn't believe that I made this ridiculous because like at the time, it was like this popular thing, like 8-minute abs. But when I was going to college, I was like, well, I don't know. How am I going to keep this up? So like, I made this little tape with like, I made sure there were 30-second songs. And what are else are 30-second songs? Well, I don't know, like TV theme songs are 30 seconds long or a minute long or something like that.
No, totally. No, but I remember us all on the floor at Dunham's apartment. Right. And because 8-minute abs was like a videotape.
How would you like to have a stomach that looks like this? How would you like to get the great feeling of a trimmer, slimmer waistline?
Yeah, sounds great, but find me the time to do it.
Introducing 8-minute abs, the fast way to get results where you want them most.
8-minute abs is great. I pop it in, I'm done, and it works.
8-Minute Abs takes you through a series of simple movements scientifically designed to get you fast results. It takes just 8 minutes, and it will tighten and trim your waistline.
To order with a check or a credit card, call toll-free 1-800-351-1800.
I don't think we ever actually had it. If we did, I think the only version we had was the one that you created for us. Right.
I made an audio tape of it, and I'm like, all right, guys, now we're doing right elbow to left left knee. And they're like, okay, and then you just keep going, and then we just keep doing this.
Memory.
And everyone, like, I don't know why, but people started borrowing that tape. And then, like, so the guy that lived at the end of my hall, he's like, hey man, can I borrow that tape? And I go, I mean, like, this was supposed to be for me, like, as a kind of a joke, and now, like, people are borrowing this tape.
It was very popular,
and then it disappeared. Like, someone like loaned it out to another person. It just got like someone that I loaned it to another person. I go, really? Is it really that popular? Like, can't you just record it? Like, it's like 10 minutes or 8 minutes. Okay?
8. Not 9, not 7. No, legitimately. No, I remember us doing that. I remember being on the dirty floor at the dirty ass carpet, because when you here and party, the floor's not clean. Also, boys. Yes. I remember being on the floor, but I remember loving it because it was something that we did, and then we would go walk down, especially on the weekends. I think we would go walk down to the dining hall, and not necessarily all of us, but like once everybody stumbled out of bed, right? I've never been a morning person, still am not. I remember walking down to the dining hall and like piling the plates full of all this food for breakfast or brunch on Saturday and Sunday, right? Like, that was one of those things that for me, again, whole new experience. Never.
Did you gain the freshman? What is it? The freshman 15 or is that what that is called?
I did not. Do you know what? Yeah. I didn't gain my freshman anything because we ran around and worked out so much, and I still didn't. And I don't like beer, which helps. I didn't gain that weight until my junior year when I went to Spain and came back, and all that would fit were my cargo pants because they had way better gelato in Europe. And so we walked everywhere. I gained so much weight that I literally came back and none of my painted on jeans would fit anymore. Funny story. And so no, legitimately, that's where I finally gained some weight. But beyond that, no, I felt like I couldn't quite understand what people were at that point in my life. Remember, athletic, had done sports up until that point, still continued to run and go to the gym and all that stuff. But I just kept moving, right? Like, and we were riding our bike. Like, there was so much going on. I definitely, I remember that, but at the same time, it was like, I don't know what everybody's talking about. Like, I would eat dinner and forget that I'd had dinner. Like, that was kind of where my metabolism was at.
Our dorm was also like the furthest dorm, like away from actual campus.
Oh yeah. So, and in fact, I almost got kicked out of a really boring geology class that was down on 8th.
Almost got kicked out?
Yeah.
What's that story?
Well, it was a professor who was way too serious about rocks, and gave me a lecture one day about how I wasn't going to be a successful college student, but I was coming, and it was winter quarter, coming from Almonte, the farthest dorm. I mean, there were the apartments, whatever they were, the brown ones that were kind of behind us. Were like, Student Village? Yeah, Student Village was the only thing farther, but going from Almonte down to literally the building was on 8th, and I don't remember the name of what it was, but it was like across from the pizza place and the photo place, photo house, like German wannabe. And he sat me down. It was an 8 a.m. class, and it was winter. And I was like, fuck this shit. My nose hairs are freezing. I'm not going to ride a bicycle in the ice. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, so it's late enough. And I got a very serious lecture about how I needed to be on time for class, or I was not going to be a successful student. And I was like, I'm probably not going to be all that successful a student anyway. But thank you so much for the input. And so then I dropped that class.
Wow. Okay.
And never again, if I could avoid it, had an 8 a.m. class. Like,
Yeah.
I learned that lesson really early.
You're just not a, well, back then you weren't a morning person.
I'm still not.
Okay.
Why would you be? Why do you need to be? Sunsets are beautiful. Why do you get blinded by the sun coming up when you...
Wait, aren't sunrises beautiful?
No, that's right. It wasn't. And too early. Like, no, wait till it comes up and like, you can like, I literally have a picture of me sitting on the toilet on the day after my 21st birthday, wearing nothing but sunglasses, with the small window in my bathroom being way too bright.
I had no idea.
Pissed off because I had to be awake too early, and just for basic bodily functions, like, it was too much. So no, again, knowing yourself, like, I never had a problem with that, right? Like, knowing what I like, what I don't like, you know, who my people are, who aren't my people. And again, being an only child, I think that's a little easier. And also too, kind of being raised in such a weird way. Again, not bad, but different.
I definitely remember you were always like the strong, the strong one. It was one of those things too, where like, you're not fucking with Aolani. Like, well, you can like poke fun at like all the other people, like, but you're like, you're kind of like the annoyed adult sometimes, especially like Ryan and I, because we were like the buffoons that we were always like giggling and being stupid. Right. And you're like,
well, like, but that, and again, that was 100% what that was. No, that's exactly what it was. It was, I know who I am. If I ask for your input, I might, I might listen to it. But if I didn't, that's okay. You don't like it, bad. That's all right. We'll just, we'll do something different. But for the people that and that's the part of it too. Remember, at that age, we're all finding ourselves. We're all growing up. We're all learning about the world. And based on what I'd been through and what I understood of things, there was definitely more of a wall. Like, it was don't fuck with me because I'd been fucked with, right? Like, and I don't mean like in a logical way, but just enough already. And also probably a bigger part of that was having to parent the parents a little bit. So it really was like, and I also was like the babysitter, the nanny. Like, I was going home on weekends to take care of my cousins, right? Like, they were all younger than me. So, and I didn't realize it at the time, but after the whole trying to die situation in 2008, my aunt came to me and said, we can't lose you. You helped raise our kids. Like, you know what I mean? And there were several people and families that I helped raise their kids from the time they were, like babies. So they were like my kids, which was awesome because... So
you were like an adult.
I was a fully grown adult.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So like, we were not. We were definitely not. We were... we were older than you, and we were the children. We were the children.
Yeah. No, but I was accustomed to that. Like, it makes total sense. But I would have been fine with that, right?
That does make sense. That's great. That's pretty funny. That's very enlightening. So Aolani, what was your degree in at Central? Were you, because I mean, probably nothing at first, but then.
Well, no, I started out planning to be a teacher.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to be a teacher, and then I saw the homework that my roommate, my second roommate, was bringing home, and I went, "That's not going to be. I don't think I'm going to want to." They
always had like the busy work, all that, because like that school was one of the biggest teaching schools in the state.
Yeah, like good teaching school, right?
Yeah.
And so, the funny thing is, I actually had a really good conversation with my uncle, who was the CEO of several companies before he retired. He's still alive. But at the time he was a CEO and had lots of corporate experience. And he sat me down one summer when I was in Texas and said, anybody can be a teacher. They don't need more teachers. Go get your degree in business and then actually do something and make some money. And then you can go back and be a teacher. Like, there's no, you know what I mean? And it was like, ding. So my degree is in business administration, minor in Spanish, minor in human resource management, and I think technically I had some sort of certification, but again, man, that was so long ago. Do you know what I mean? The idea.
Did you end up using that degree? Like, or did you end up? Because and I'm not. By the way, I'm not calling you out. Most of the people I know didn't, like myself. We don't use our degrees for.
Absolutely not.
You know.
In fact, to get that degree, I was so bad at math. And here's the irony. This is the best part. I was so bad at math. Well, not basic. Well, no, even basic math. I took like math 99 originally. Like I tested so badly in math, I had to start, and we called it the R word math because that was still okay. And it was.
Yeah.
And then worked my way up to pre-calc, which was the requirement for biz ad, right? In fact, Lee and I failed at least one pre-calc or algebra.
Were you in a class with Lee?
Oh yeah, that's how Lee and I really got to be friends when he finally came to Central after this weekend, which was I think it's the first time that
Lee used to always stay with me because like I had that I was like a quarter, like that Mike guy, he moved out.
Right.
Thank goodness. And then it was just a vacant spot. So I was like, dude, I have like a full room now. Like you can sleep on that other bed, man. And he did. He slept over there all the time.
Yeah. No, and he was there. And that's what I mean. I didn't really know him until he started coming to school there. But I knew of, you guys all kind of, again, from Auburn. James, I think, went to TJ. But I try not to, like, tell other people's stories. But kind of that group, and then Green River, right?
Yeah.
I went to Green River, and again, that was kind of my speed anyway, because I had done running start in high school, and then didn't go to college. Again, kind of went, I don't know what I want to do. But no, Lee and I failed at least one math class together.
That doesn't sound likely.
Not at all, right? And the best part was I ended up only passing pre-calc on the third try after I was going into my fifth year with having gotten to know the dean of the College of Business and all of the teachers, having worked there in the office, and I got a sympathy D after. I'm not kidding. A sympathy grade. Because I finished everything, and that whole semester, or whatever it was that we were on, I paid a high school math honors student to tutor me and learned nothing and still failed the final. And they gave me a D and said, you can go now because you've tried hard enough. That's legitimately how it happened.
Now, you said, it's funny because you mentioned that you got a sympathy D. Yeah. And my professor, I learned so much from my video professor back in college. He was an amazing mentor and just a interesting guy, Professor Bob Forden. And we always used to make fun of him. He's like, Mr. Bob Forden, Anyway, this guy, he knew I was probably one of the better students as far as like I was always there. I was good at working the equipment and all the different machines and stuff like that. But when it came down to the technical tests, I was so bad at tests. I've always been really bad at tests. And maybe it's because I'm always looking around at things like, like with people like, I would always be fascinated with those people that be like, well, I'm done with this. And then they'd like whip it up and then they would walk up to the thing. And I'm like, I'm always the last person and I'm like, oh God, how come I'm not as fast as all these people? Like, how come I'm all looking at all the dancers and they're like, two of these look pretty good. These look pretty good, but I was just so bad at tests, and I think he kind of did that with one of my classes too. So
no, after the third time that I took the class and paid for it and was still failing. Excuse me, that's just the way it ended up. And well, here's the thing: at the time, I really needed it, and having gotten involved in working there at the College of Business, which I did in the office, and getting to know all of the profs and getting to know, do you know what I mean? It was the the biggest lesson was it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Oh yeah.
Also being, I was in the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, which is super, that's a little nerdy. A little nerdy. Not chess club, but not the popular kids. But that's also what got me my internship with Nike right after I graduated and allowed me the flexibility to get out. And at that point, my mom had cancer and she got her terminal diagnosis while I was in Oregon, in Beaverton at the Nike campus.
So when was this?
So this was 2003.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So remember, I started in 97. Didn't we all get there in 97?
Yeah. Well, me and Ryan. Yeah. And I'm sorry, me, Ryan, and James. Yeah.
Right. Right. And then, and I know Lee was later.
And then I recruited like Velasco and and then I recruited like Ethan and Lee and.
Yeah. No, totally.
That school owes me. They owe me, Aolani. They owe me money.
They really, honestly, you should have gotten a spiff for every single.
Right.
Because I was borrowing money to fail classes. I don't know about you, but I was.
Borrow money to fail classes. I remember, you just reminded me of something. I remember, James and Ryan, didn't they had help from their relative or their relatives or whatever.
Yeah.
And this was so funny. They would, on loan day, it'd be so exciting because they'd be like, it's loan day. And I'm like, all right. And they're like, hey, you want to go to the liquor store with us? And I go to the liquor store with them. And I don't know if it was James or Ryan. One of them got a cart out. And I was like, you guys are getting a cart at the liquor store? And they just started putting like all this stuff in there. I was like, this is hilarious.
I'm going to guess Ryan. I mean, but I'm going to guess Ryan. Was it heavily?
Well, James liked making the drinks more than Ryan and I.
Yeah.
We tried to put down, I mean, unsuccessfully, of course, but we were more the dumb drinkers. James
and I wasn't either, right? Like, I honestly, I never had and it's, still to this day, and I'm not sure that that's a bad thing, but I never blacked out. I never woke up someplace that I didn't know where you know what I mean? Like, nothing.
Again, you're the adult. You're one of the adults in the room. I mean, that's why you and James had the connection. Like, you guys are the adults. You guys are the adults in the room.
We totally were, and so that's what I mean. Like, I kind of felt like it was. I had these. This was my group. You guys were my people.
Right.
Honestly, I'll never forget. And I know that's off topic too, but I had so much fun, especially with the jocks. Right, like the guys football, and kind of as I got to know more people and as more people came that you guys knew, it was like kind of the group got bigger. I remember sitting at Red Robin just having lunch one day, and it was like, I want to say it was probably 12 or 13 of us that all went to Red Robin, the only place in town that right. And I remember sitting kind of somewhere in the middle of this table, they pushed a bunch of tables together over by the windows, and I remember looking that way and looking that way. And it was all dudes, right? And me. and not like not in a weird way, not in a sexual way, but like I am so good with this, right? Like, so comfortable with the way this has worked out. I felt safe. We had fun. Do you know what I mean? Like, again, for me, it was perfect, because in high school and even in junior high, I had small schools and AB, leagues. I worked out with the guys. I played with the guys. Guys didn't want to play basketball with me because pointy elbows, right? Like I really truly, like, I didn't learn to play like a girl. I played. And so that was part of it. And again, that's part of the don't fuck with me thing too.
Yeah.
Physically being strong, right? And being strong and not being afraid of anything or anyone. So that was really, for me, that was a sense of stability and safety that I don't think I would have had I not been surrounded by all these big meatheads. You know what I mean? Who really were good people.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah. You definitely, it's like kind of like a tomboyish kind of deal, right? Like where you just, some people connect with women and some people connect with guys, and
Yeah.
you're definitely connected with the guys.
Yeah. I had way more with the guys than the girls.
Okay. So after college, what did you do after college? Like, you went to work somewhere?
Yeah, so immediately after college, I went to do an internship at Nike because the only way to get, I don't know if it still is this way, but the only way to be hired at Nike is to go through temp agencies that they contract with or be an intern.
Now, is this a Nike place like in Seattle, or did you actually go down to Portland headquarters?
No, Nike, Beaverton.
Oh, Beaverton. Okay, so I'm sorry, I get the...
Yeah. But no, so that was, and it was really kind of a sweet deal. And I'd gotten that through a contact with Sherm, a guy at Nike, Ike Dixon was his name. And again, it was another one of those things that I didn't really know what I was going to do. And I was looking at, job offers that were coming in going, these don't look like fun. It was like they were hiring for insurance companies and stuff that, like I didn't want to immediately go manager track. I wanted to get experience, right? Again,
sure.
Thinking I want experience, I want to make some money and learn management, real management, people management. And so I was selected, and again, kind of late. And then I went down there and they did, at the time, which was kind of amazing. So in 2002, 2003, it was at $2,500 a month with fully furnished apartment and access to everything on campus, where we had like gym membership, and it was a sweet place to work. I mean, it really was. It was a lot of fun, and they allowed product testing. And so I did, they did a lot of science, with figuring out whether it be shoes or the equipment and the performance aspects of the gear. And you got to be in touch with people and with different departments, where I was actually on the U.S. community service or community. I wish I could remember.
Okay.
But what we were doing is we were doing community outreach. Like we would plan programs at local parks, and they were doing like the resurfacing of courts and like sport courts in the area, Habitat for Humanity. They did all kinds of things and supported charities and brought kids to the campus. Like we would actually set up these days or a couple of day events where we would have underprivileged kids come, and we got to plan out and set up the whole deal to bring them there and give them, like, they got to have a fun sports day. They got to meet some of the actual, sponsored athletes, that type of stuff. So
how long did this last? How long were you at this place?
So I was only there for 4 months, because it was supposed to be a 3-month deal, and at the end, like, I don't know if it was the day of or the day before my review, my mom got her terminal diagnosis. So breast cancer, right? And she was diagnosed with cancer when I was still at Central. But I knew from the time that it happened that I would have to take care of her, because her husband at the time was he was not helpful, is the nicest way to put it. But I knew she wasn't going to go the traditional route. And so she had just gotten her 6-month, so basically terminal 6-month diagnosis. So that occurred right at the point that they were doing my evaluation to stay and become a full-time employee or, be done. And I so badly wanted to stay.
Oh, no.
Do you know what I mean? I loved it. I loved it there, but I had to go.
Life was calling.
I knew I had to come home, and I just knew I had to take care of her. So that was, and again, that's about that's the
adult in you.
The adult in me,
yeah.
That would have been so much more fun if I could have. Well, and I really wanted to parlay my business degree into international business. I really wanted to be able to travel and work with a multinational company like Nike.
Yeah,
perfect. So I went, I really, really like it here, but I'm gonna have to not.
Did you ever reach back out to any of your contacts after this, or after all that
I stayed in
horribleness went down?
Nobody still, but for a few years, yeah, there were a couple people I stayed in touch with, and I, was friends with, and there was one of the groups that I worked with who The gift they gave me when I was leaving was this gorgeous custom made pair of shoes, which my stupid dog ate one of.
Oh no!
They were just starting like the stuff where you could do custom, like fully customized shoes.
Yeah.
For, custom stuff was the big thing. Because remember, too, 2003, like the internet. What were I don't even know if there was Myspace yet, but right? Like it wasn't. That's where we were. We were still very much flip phone and
yeah.
So I loved it there, and I really would have loved to have stayed. But and then from that point on, while I was taking care of my mom, I got into banking because I was able to get a job through a friend of hers who knew that she was ill and I had to take care of her. So I became a loan assistant at WaMu, which also is no longer, as you know, as people know. But that's how I started into loans. And then I went through it was like a loan officer training program with a mentor and with my boss there. I worked at a loan office in Issaquah and then in Redmond with the same boss who put me through the program, and then became a loan officer myself. And that's what I did for the next 6 years till 2000. It was basically 2003 to 2007, the end of 2007.
So now we're close to the stuff that's going down here, right? So I did that through 2007, and I was in Nevada because I got married in 2004. I didn't even know that, by the way.
You didn't know I got married?
I didn't even know you got married.
Well,
who did you get married? How long did this last? What was this?
Well, it also didn't last all that long.
Okay.
But that's how I got to Nevada, and I met him through a friend of a friend at Central. I went to school with his brother.
Okay.
So his name is Josh, and I met his brother.
Sounds amazing already. I mean,
right? I know. But he was in the Navy, so I became an appendage because that's how spouses and families are for the military.
Yeah.
But so I'd met his brother and then met his family, and then while I was taking care of my mom, he was actually out on the Lincoln because they were dealing with the desert. It wasn't necessarily storm, but supporting activity in the desert. So he was on the Lincoln for 11, maybe, I think it was over a year, 11, 13 months, something like that. And when he got back, that's when we got together. But I already knew his family and, had been introduced. And it was so funny because my mother-in-law, who I love to this day, she had said, you need to marry one of my sons. And she didn't care which one. No lie. She didn't care which one. She's like, I love you. We want you to be part of our family. So I would like you to marry one of my sons. And I went,
pick one.
Thank you for the invitation. So I married Josh, who was the oldest. And we immediately got sent. He was stationed in California at the time, and then we got married and left to move to California, and got there and found out, oh no, you're going to Nevada. The day we arrived with wow. My mom's old cat and our brand new puppy and whole life in tow. So we got there we were stationed at NAS Lemoore, which is Armpitsville. Think like Bakersfield, but more feedlot smells. Not
your favorite place.
Not anybody's favorite place. Not a good. No, armpit. Think
okay.
Armpit of California. That's what it is. And again, it's ag. Lots of dust, cows, whatever else. And so we got there. We got transferred to Nevada, which was even more BFE. And NAS Fallon is about 70 miles east of Reno. So I transferred I walked into my new office in near Lemoore and told my boss, I'm really sorry, we're being transferred to Nevada, and then moved to the Reno office because that was the closest office that was available, for me to go to when we got moved. And then we lived in a little town called Fernley, Nevada, which was about midway between NAS Fallon and Reno. So
Okay.
think like SAC, like 100 miles or so north of SAC, but northern Nevada, right? And it's higher altitude, like it's like 4,200 feet above sea level, but a lot like Eastern Washington, right? Like rivers,
Yeah.
farmland, and Indian reservations, that type of thing. Like it's very similar to Eastern Washington. So I liked it.
You did like it or you didn't like it?
At first I thought it was terrible.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go, but what are you going to do? And at the time, Reno was booming, so it was good business, and I ended up doing well as a loan officer, and then I got recruited as things were not going quite so well with WaMu before the whole, crash. Well, not just the crash of things were not going well with some of the places that felt it first. They kind of felt it before the 08 crash, right?
Yeah.
Like before the big mortgage bust. But yeah, so I was there, and then my husband and I split up, and I came back home at the end of 2007. We had a gorgeous house. We had dogs. I kept the dogs. He took his stuff with him, the stuff that he came with.
Okay.
And then my next plan from there was I wanted to do something more, and I reconnected with a friend from Kent, and decided that I wanted to be a police officer. I thought, hey, law enforcement sounds like fun. Again, still unafraid of anybody, strong,
Yeah.
felt I could do it. And so I was training to be a police officer, and
I could see that.
right,
I can definitely see that.
pretty much anybody that I talked to or I
Yeah.
told at that point was like, "Oh, you'd be so good at that."
Mhm.
like without me asking for their opinion, it was, "Oh my," you know what I mean? Like that was my plan. Like
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing. And I gave myself some time because I'd come from a desk job. Still I did my best to take care of myself, but went from desk job,
Yeah.
lots of driving, to I need to get ready for this, right? Because the male and female tests are slightly different. I don't know if they still are, but at the time they were. And so I knew I needed to be ready. And so I was ready. And so it was, I spent about 4 months really just training hard, like running, push-ups, sit-ups, all the stuff you do. I was in the total gym rat.
I'm picturing like the Rocky montage of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Aolani training and like jump
Yeah.
roping and like,
Yeah.
lifting weights and
Pretty much.
heavy bag.
That's what I was doing. And no, I mean, not so much steps, but,
Yeah.
but a lot of running, a lot of working out. And I got really, really strong. Like I got stronger than I had been, probably the strongest I'd ever been. But that's the piece that, as things fit together, right? So it was April 2nd of 2008 was the day that I was supposed to take the PFAT, the physical fitness ability test. And my friend, who is still a detective, I'm not even going to say her name, but she was wonderful. She was going to meet me there. It's done up like in Shoreline or somewhere up north a little bit. April 2nd. And that morning I woke up and something was not right. Like I knew something wasn't right. I didn't know what it was, but I knew something wasn't right. I was lightheaded and I was having some chest pain, and I knew something was wrong. But I also didn't want to panic. And at the time I was living with my parents, in Kent, and I was planning to be with Kent PD. So I didn't want to call the cops. I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, I'm the one who I didn't think I was having a panic attack because I never have, but I didn't want to call the ambulance or call for help from there.
Yeah.
And have it not be something, I'd already run through the full test. I had done that the weekend before. So I knew I could do it, right? Like it's a run, a short run, a long run, push-ups, sit-ups, all that stuff. So I wasn't afraid, I just was looking forward to it. And so instead I like called off the test and told my dad, I think I need to go to the hospital. And,
Wow.
and so my dad took me, which was a mistake. If you're having a heart attack or having any kind of an issue that's serious, don't take yourself. Call 911. Take an ambulance, because ambulance takes you into the ER. When you walk in and you, look pretty good, and especially if you're a woman and you're young, they're not going to treat you like you actually have a life-threatening situation.
It's funny that you say that, by the way, because I had Ryan take me to the emergency room when my appendix was about to burst. Mm-hmm. And I just sat there and I'm like, I don't think you guys understand. Like, I'm in like serious pain. And like, it wasn't until I was on the ground rolling around. Yeah. So that's funny that you say that. You're like, that makes so much sense. Like, the ambulance takes you right in there.
They do. And
that makes so much sense.
Yeah. No, I waited in line for triage. And as a matter of fact, one of the toughest things that I remember was I was sitting in between two guys in line. One guy that was singing along with his Discman, still had a Discman.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Wait.
Along, right? This little guy.
It's like this?
Yes.
Like this?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Just like.
Okay, sorry.
He's singing along. Like, I can hear his music.
Yeah.
And another guy on the other side of me was a construction worker who was there because he was sick and needed a note. Like, he just needed a note or he was going to get fired, right? So we sat through the line, the triage line, walked in, told them the symptoms I was having, told them what was going on. They told me to get in line. Like, ignored me, went whatever. So it took about an hour and a half to get through the triage line. And during that time, while they had the triage windows were open and I'm watching people, and I'm going to pass out. Like, I'm to the point now where, without knowing it though, my half my heart, so the right side of my heart, is going without blood flow, because what actually happened was my right coronary artery had blown. It's called a dissection, or it's SCAD, spontaneous coronary artery dissection. But being as strong as I was and in as good a shape as I was, even with that happening, I was still able to maintain blood pressure and keep myself upright. I just knew there was something really, really wrong.
Oh, man.
And when we finally got up to the window, both the guys were like, take her. Like, she's sick. Like,
yeah.
They recognized it. But while we were waiting, my dad was holding me up. And they were yelling at him to go sit down in the main waiting area and get out of the triage line. And he's like, she's going to fall down. And I remember looking at the just absolutely filthy, it was Harborview, right? Harborview floor in the ER, if you can imagine, looking down at the floor and going, God, please don't let me fall down on that floor. Like, don't let me fall on that floor. And the response that came from the window was, let her fall on the floor. We'll pick her up. That's our job.
What, for real? They really said that?
100%. Let her fall on the floor. We'll pick her up. That's our job.
Wow.
Dad, who is not pushy. He's not, he was like, she's not okay.
Yeah, he's looking out for you.
Right. And he's holding me up. And these, this guy, one guy on either side is like, she's not okay. Like other people are doing their best, but I'm so sick at that point because it's already been hours, right? And when I finally did get through triage, they were like, well, your blood pressure is still stable. And so they just put me right back in to wait and didn't do an EKG right away. The protocol for heart protocol, right? Like, if you go in with the chest pain protocol is what it's called, is within 15 minutes, and definitely within the first hour, you should have EKG, you should have labs drawn to check for troponins, which is an enzyme that your heart releases into the body when there's heart muscle damage. That all should be done within 15 to 60 minutes once you hit the doors, whether you're ambulance or walked in. I walked in there at 11:01, and I didn't actually get seen until late afternoon, They finally moved all of us together in the same three of us from there to gurneys in the hallway, still not even actually into an ER room yet. And then I finally got into an ER room, and they did do an EKG, and things just went even worse from there because they didn't read the EKG right, and they still were thinking that I was just having a panic attack. And the PA that saw me, again, lots of bias, lots of assumptions. They started me on nitroglycerin, which is a vasodilator, and that causes migraines. So I had this ripping migraine that they gave me on top of everything else. And so I was feeling even worse, and I just wanted to go home at that point, right? I was like, this is so stupid. Like, they're not going to.
How long were you in there at this point, right now? Like, at this point in time?
So at that point, when they finally actually did do a blood draw, and I'm a little fuzzy on it because it's been such a long time now, but it took from 11 o'clock when I walked in the door to it ended up being about 4:30 or so.
Okay, several hours. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, hours. And then they finally consented me for the cath lab and actually had moved me over from just the regular ER to what they call the resuscitation bays or recess bays. They finally moved me over on a gurney. But that only happened after the PA who misread the EKG and didn't pay attention to my my labs and discharged me.
Okay.
So I actually got discharged, but they wrote a prescription for migraine medicine, which I went down to the pharmacy, again, still walking on under my own power, to get at like 7 o'clock at night. And then at that point, while I was waiting for that medication to try to like feel better, the PA came running in to the pharmacy and said, "You have to come back." And I was like, "For what?" Like, why? There's nothing wrong. Didn't tell me then, but...
I mean, at this point, were you feeling better aside from the migraine that you had?
No, I felt terrible. I mean...
Oh, okay. So you just felt like tired and whatever?
Yeah. Tired,
okay.
lightheaded, dizzy, the whole night.
Did you feel your heart, like, actually, did it feel weird, or is it just your whole body was
it was
exhausted?
My whole body, but then it was all... It never was like crushing chest pain, but it was pressure and it was like radiating, right? So like my back, kind of radiated to the back, which is more common with women. Women and men don't have the same type of heart attack symptoms. In fact, they rarely. And knowing too, which we had told them at triage, my dad had what was most likely a smaller SCAD or dissection at 40 that they thought was just kind of a weird vasospasm rhythm issue. And again, that's actually true. But that's part of the family history, so that even at 28, they should have listened when we said, hey, there's family history, having typical signs of a heart event. And then it was 9 o'clock when they finally consented me. Like, I remember signing the consent form to have a CT, and then they finally took me into the cath lab, which is the heart catheterization lab. It's where they go in to do angiography, where they go in and actually look and see and shot the dye to be able to see where there might be blockages or, what might be going on. That's when I coded. And what had happened was when they shot the dye, the whole RCA, the whole right coronary artery went, nope, done with this, because it had already been the dissection. If you think of an artery like a hose, that kind of comes apart. You know how a garden hose, if it's punctured, it can come apart and kind of like in a spiral way, or if you cut it, you can, it kind of, think of it that way is my explanation. That had been going on for so long that blood had just been kind of not being pumped, right? And it wasn't necessarily collecting there, but it was causing such a strain on the left side because the right side wasn't pumping or circulating blood the way it should have been. And once they finally got in there and shot, with the catheter, they tried to shoot stents, but you don't fix a dissection with stents. You fix blockages with stents. So they tried to shoot stents, and while they were trying to do that, they weren't in the right area, and I was coding. So they spent the next several hours shocking me, trying to shoot stents at the same time. And I've read the chart. Like they start out and then they go to the max. And again, I don't remember the number because I kind of have a hard time with saying the exact number of times or duration, because they were hitting me with max amount of electricity, amount for at least an hour and a half before they finally did get me back. So I was coding and not there essentially for that amount of time until they finally were able to get enough of a rhythm that they stabilized me and took me to the ICU. And what they ended up having to do was put an external pump on, and they attach it, and they put it on the leg, if that makes sense. They actually strap it to your leg. And that was placed. And then I was on all the machines pretty much all the machines that are available, because there was no way to fix the damage that had been done, right? Like the damage was done. If you can't reperfuse or get circulation going in an artery again within a certain amount of time, there's no fixing it, right? Like it's a time sensitive situation.
So at this point, just to get more detail. So at this point, are they like, you're not going to be able to survive unless you need like machine like on you, or you need like a heart essentially. Like you need, there needs to be something done.
Right. Well, right at that point I was on full mechanical support, and they had me up in the ICU, and
and you're at the UW Center?
This was actually at Harborview.
Oh, this is a Harborview. Okay.
Harborview. And we'd gone to Harborview because it's the first hospital in the city. Other family members of mine had gotten good care there for trauma or heart or other issues. And my dad was worried, right? Like we got there like lickety split. Like he was not driving slowly, right, when we got there. But we'd gone through this whole day of just not, I kept looking at him in the waiting room and going, okay, if I'm not dead by 2:30, we're going home. If I'm not dead by 4, like we're going home. This is stupid. This is stupid. And so again, I was not aware of any of this, but at that point, they basically told my family she's not going to make it. And they had me on full mechanical support, and a referral was made because the rest of me was so healthy and strong for me to potentially be a donor. Wow. So I've actually been on both sides of donation. I was a potential donor because the referral gets made when they've got somebody who's so seriously ill, or who is, they ideally brain death is the standard, but there's also cardiac death as a standard. But before the rest of your organs all go, because when one goes, the rest do too, right? Like at that point, my kidneys weren't happy either, but they made the referral. So again, they weren't even talking to my parents about this, or my dad, my stepmom, and the rest of my family, but my whole family was there, and everybody knew very little. And then this is the part where you come in, whether you know it or not. And I think we've talked about it, but if not, my stepfather had somehow gotten on Myspace and had made a post saying that I'd had a massive heart attack. And you saw it, and you told James and Ryan and Lee, and I'm not sure who else, but that's how that group of people found out it was you, because you saw the post that he made, which he wasn't supposed to make, and it wasn't accurate, but he made that post.
Wow.
there, but he had just been told. And then 2 days later, they got somebody over at UW to say that they would take me, and they moved me that 4.2 miles by ambulance with all the machines and got me to UW, and then that's where I woke up. Like I said, they tried to wake me up and take me off of sedation a few times, but I just wasn't stable enough between the 2nd and the 12th. But it was so April 2nd to April 12th. I don't have any memories other than I have hallucinations that are my memories, but I knew they were hallucinations, right? Like, it's very odd.
Aolani, at what point do they say, hey, listen, we need to get you on a list?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not, because when I woke up on the 12th, I said, yeah, no, I don't think I want to be doing this.
Right. You're like you've been in a hospital for
I woke up in this
couple weeks or whatever it was.
For 10 days. And I remember finally coming out of, they call it sedation vacation. I was on sedation vacation, just having my happy little hallucinations.
Right.
Well, most of them weren't happy, but they were hallucinations. Because that's what the meds do. And they're intended to keep you from remembering, and to keep you calm. But I remember seeing my dad's face standing at the end of the bed and going, oh, shit. Like, this is not good. And then this parade of doctors that were all standing there looking at me and going, you're in heart failure. They were actually talking about devices as opposed to transplant. And at that point, it was like, I don't want to do that, right? Like, I went, I don't want to do any of this. This seems stupid.
Like, so you're talking like an artificial heart of some sort, or like with those?
Well, they didn't even have a full artificial heart yet then.
Okay.
So they have them now. At the time, they had LVADs, which is a left ventricular assist device, but they could kind of put it together where it might work for a right coronary artery problem, if that makes sense. So LVADs, because of the way that hearts pump, LVADs had been around for several years, but they were this big, huge metal pump, right? And they work best in fat old white guys, if you think of it that way. Like, think of your typical heart patient. It's an older guy who has more bulk on them.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my ICU nurses, who was just a sweetheart, saying, you don't want to do that. No, but yeah. Which was I appreciated her saying it.
Right.
It was, there's no place to put it, right? Yeah. Like, when you're lean and also a female, and there's the other piece of it was, I recovered enough to be up and walking and talking and showering, which most people in the ICU don't do. In fact, they had to clear out a shower for me, because I was like, y'all, it's been 10 days. I need a shower.
Yeah.
Like, this is gross. And that was amazing in and of itself, because I had been on, like I said, the external pumps. Well, one of those pumps had actually even overheated. The pump that was on my leg overheated and gave me second-degree burns on my thigh.
Gosh.
Did nobody smell something burning in here?
Oh my goodness.
And all kinds of scars and fluid, and they call it flogging the heart. They'd put all this extra fluid on me, probably 40 pounds or so or more, trying to keep my blood pressure up, trying to get me stable. But then when I finally woke up and I found out what happened and I finally understood it took a couple days to be with it enough and to be kind of out of the drugs to understand. I went, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to do any of this. I really felt strongly like, okay, so I understand what happened, but I also understood from pretty early on that mistakes were made and like, this shouldn't have happened. Like, something more is going on here. So that's kind of where it stopped from that point, because I spent another couple of weeks in the ICU with heart failure protocol, right? Like, the protocol being all these meds, statins and heart meds and all this stuff, and then blood thinners and all kinds of things. But unfortunately, because it was such a rare thing that happened, they really didn't have a set plan, because it was such a weird deal. right? It was such a weird, freaky deal. And it wasn't because of blockages. It wasn't because, you know what I mean? Like, it was not because of a heart defect. It was because of my vasculature being weird and the dissection that went untreated for so long. Normally dissections would be bypassed, if that makes sense. So just like if somebody has too many blockages to get stents through, they'll bypass. Well, that, again, too late for that, because none of those, all of those options were gone, but I was also still not a typical heart patient. So 2 weeks later, I'm in the ICU still, and I'm really critical because we know I don't have, this whole RCA is blown. And I finally said, you know what? I need to go home. I need to go home and think about this. Like, they'd mentioned transplant, but I was not evaluated or listed yet. We'd talked about it, and I was like, I don't even want to talk about that. And so I went home. And it was May 5th that the other side blew.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And at that point I knew when it happened, there was like this much artery, as they would say, this much artery kind of left. So right coronary, mid, and then left. Essentially my left and my right both had blown to the point where, and blown not being a technical term, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
And because the pressures had been so far off, for so long, there was no way to recover from the damage.
One side's, he's like working like extra hard, and he's like, I can't keep.
Totally.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
totally, 100%. And so I end up with like just this much left, and it's basically the circumflex, the middle artery, but that's not enough. Yet I was still strong and with it and mobile, under my own power, with no devices. And so I end up at the hospital, and I was listed the next day for transplant. So it was, as I went in, I knew, okay, this is my, you know what I mean? Like,
and what were you were telling me when we met up in January, you were telling me, what is the waiting list for that kind of thing? It's like, it can be like a forever, right? I mean, like
years for
and a lot of people die on these waiting lists, right?
A lot of people die. And of the people that are waiting, most are waiting for kidneys, but it's, and I can send you those numbers. They were updated recently. It's a scary thing because they list you, but it goes by level of illness, right? Like, it goes by how sick you are and need, right? Like, it's matching up with blood type, size, distance, right? Like, you have to be within a 4-hour distance of wherever you're going to be transplanted, or, the organ that's coming to you. People can list at multiple transplant centers, but you have to be able to get there within 4 hours, right? So it's kind of, that's why there are regions still. It's not a national thing that's just managed by one big database. It's regional areas, they're regional centers, and they're called OPOs, Organ Procurement Organizations. So the Washington region, or the WaMu region, is Washington, Alaska, Montana, Idaho, and sometimes into Oregon and California.
Okay.
So if that makes sense. So it's kind of that area. So they list you, and it's based on how sick you are and need. And people that are able to go home and be managed with meds or with devices, they can wait for years. They can wait months to years. I didn't leave the hospital again. So if you're, and that was 1A at the time, they've also even changed the listing designation. So it was 1A, 1B, 2, that type of thing back then. Now it's slightly different. And I was a 1A. So being in the hospital and being dependent on meds and not able to go home, that puts you at the highest, right? That's the highest level.
Yeah.
So neediest, it should be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. Now so when did you actually, how long did it take for you to actually get the actual date for the heart transplant, and how did that process go?
Well, the funny part is I had what they call dry runs. I had a couple of calls. There were offers, right? But they need to get to the heart and evaluate it and make sure that it's okay. And so you don't know. They'll call you and they'll say, we have a heart that matches, but they need to go get to it, right? Get to the patient, get to the donor, be able to actually look at it, surgically look at it, as well as compare all the numbers and whatnot. And so I had 2 dry runs between May and July. And then the third call was the one that it was this heart. And it actually came from Utah. And it ended up being, July 27th, of 2008. So I waited in the hospital from May 5th to, July 27th was actual transplant date.
Do you know how long that surgery actually took?
It's usually between 8 and 12 hours. I don't remember how long it took me, but I do know that waking up back in the ICU, I was not happy. They had issues with getting access to lines, like the lines had blown during surgery. So I ended up not being able to move. If that makes sense, if they need to go in and access an artery, they then kind of like patch it up, but then you have to hold still with pressure bandages on it. So when I woke up, I woke up and my dad was there. Again, lucky daddy. He was there and I couldn't talk because I was intubated again. And I was pissed. I was so mad. Because you can't.
A lot of people wake up angry, like in surgery. And my brother did that too. He's like really pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get that.
And beyond that, being intubated again, because it was so traumatic the first time, I had vocal cord damage, and some other damage, and your instinct is to fight it, but you have to work with it. I know that sounds kind of weird, but the way it worked with me anyway was, well, and I think it's everybody still, they require that you breathe with the ventilator for 30 minutes before they'll call the respiratory team to come pull the tube.
Wow. And
I was like, call them now. This is stupid. Call them now, right? Like, I was mad. You need to call them because I don't need to be doing this for any longer. But they did finally come and pull it. And then that also, there's pacing wires still in. There's tubes that are in, drainage tubes. There's all kinds of stuff.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah. And some people have so much inflammation and swelling with the surgery that they actually stay open. They can leave. Sometimes they have to leave the chest open.
That's crazy.
Right. And then they just like kind of seal over it.
That is so crazy. Right.
Because I visited other people in the hospital who were open still. They're usually not awake, right, when that happens, but that does and can happen. So yeah, it was one of those like, okay, okay, so can we hurry this up? Like, can we? And then, pretty much from that point on, they start giving you a type of chemo to kill your immune system, like kill it good. And that made me so sick. I was projectile vomiting, like wanting to die, sitting there in the bed from the beginning, like the first day, first night, first, 24 hours. And I had the sweetest nurse who was there with me. He did not leave my side. He spent 12 hours. He spent a 12-hour shift taking care of me, trying to get a hold of my team. Because the team, actually, my treating team was on vacation when my heart finally came. So it was like the B team.
Oh, no.
And in July, by the way, is really when you don't want to be in the hospital because it's when all the new docs are just getting to the hospital to practice for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Call them baby docs.
Okay.
So it's very hard to get, you know what I mean? Like, if you're complicated at all, it's hard to get, you get care, right? And it's competent, but it's more complicated and requires more steps and you have more people involved. And it just wasn't my team. So it was really tough trying to get the right meds and, you know, get things calmed down. But this precious man, he spent his entire shift with me. And the funny thing was, my heart came from Utah, and he was a traveler from Utah. So
That's crazy.
Right? There's this crazy Utah. I've never got to see him since, but honestly, that's what I remember. Is he was so amazing. It was such a crazy deal, and it was so.
Speaking of amazing, though, like, I mean, this isn't it crazy just to think about? Because, you know, obviously, your experience isn't going to be great after you have the surgery. It's going to be horrible. It's going to be one of the worst things probably you'll ever experience. But, like,
I hope so.
How amazing is it?
Yeah.
That they transplant hearts now. Isn't that insane?
Not
like,
only
think about that. Like, I just took down some stats.
Yeah.
Just because I was so fascinated with this, because it's fascinating. It's like Frankenstein shit, right? I mean, it really is. It's crazy. Like in 1975, there were 22 heart transplants performed in the United States.
How many of them?
22.
How many lived? Do you know?
I don't know, but that's another thing too. Don't they say what is it, like the first, I don't know what it is, 48 hours or something?
It's 50% for the first year.
Okay.
Those, if you make it past the first year, I mean, it's 50-50 odds from the gate, right? And that has to do with immunosuppression, with complications, with rhythm issues, with, you know, potential viruses, illnesses, you know, there's so much involved that can go wrong. Yeah, absolutely. It's insane. And if you stop and think about it that way, it's like, this is incredible. Like, how does this even happen?
Yeah.
Right.
And they've certainly have come a long way, because by 2022, the number of people with transplants was over 4,100 people in the United States.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And they hit a record, I believe from 2020 on, they've had record numbers, but that COVID was a big part of that, because quite a few COVID patients ended up becoming lung transplant patients.
Got it.
Lung and or heart. Because the inflammation destroys, you know, the lungs get destroyed, but, you know, can't take it.
Boy, how shut down were you during that era, the COVID?
Pretty shut down.
Oh man,
and pretty frustrated because, you know, especially with people who wanted to argue about wearing masks. After transplant, when you go anywhere, you're, at least with the UW program, different hospitals have different programs and different guidelines, but the guideline was you wear a mask for a year post. So once you've made it,
you yourself.
Yes, me.
Yeah.
And it's about protecting other people, right? Like it's not about you. It's about COVID versus transplant patients or immunocompromised patients. But when you think of it that way, people refusing to wear a mask with a novel virus that is known to be deadly for people who have immunocompromised or cancer or other conditions, right? And people refusing to do it because it violates their rights. When I spent a year, every time I went out in public, and most of the times it was to the hospital, and a year literally going like every week, this was my reality. How hard is it? It's not that hard.
Yeah.
Like, don't be a mask hole, right? Like, don't be a mask hole. And that was a big thing for me. It was really hard for me to have people who didn't seem to understand it from that perspective. Like, what you cough on me could kill me. I've been in the hospital since 2008 for the flu, with RSV, with COVID. I made it 2 years. I made it till March of 2022. In fact, actually, I made it. Dunhams came home from Minnesota in January of 2022, and James had COVID, and I went to go pick them up. The flights were all screwed up, and I ended up driving down to Portland and picking them up from the train station, wearing a mask, right, with filter, and drove all the way back home. He had COVID already. I did not get it. So,
okay.
Like that's the funny part. Like,
yeah.
Anybody that wants to argue about that kind of stuff, I don't have time for it, because again, it's about not being an asshole or a masshole and just thinking about other people a little bit more than yourself, right? Like, I'm not saying anybody needs to get vaccinated. I'm not saying anybody needs to do anything else differently, but keep in mind that when there are people who are permanently immunosuppressed, you can't fight it. You can't. COVID kicked my ass, and I still have long COVID symptoms, and it's been 2 years, 2.5 years almost, right? And I had transplant patients in my support group who were in the ICU and several who died right at the beginning because and the way they treated it actually was, and this is the scary part, because of the immunosuppression and the overwhelming inflammation that's involved with the whole spike protein and COVID virus, they take you off your immunosuppression so that you can fight the virus. And then they just kind of have to let it go and treat the rejection that they know is going to occur because you're not on your immunosuppression, right? Afterwards. So it's a crapshoot, and that's the only way really to fight it. Other than with obviously meds and technology and monoclonal antibodies and all that stuff. But again, and I don't buy into wholesale medicine and big pharma save the world, because guess what? They don't. That's not, my reality is that's what I depend on, but I still don't enjoy, I'm not in there getting a shot every other month. There are some people who are really into that, but
every other month.
Well, you can have it every.
Yeah. Okay.
Literally. No.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
It really is every 8 weeks is when you can get a booster.
Okay.
But here's the problem. Immunosuppressed people are permanently immunocompromised, and particularly people who are suppressed by meds, you don't develop immunity. Even if you get the boosters, right, or even if you get vaccine, you don't necessarily develop. And it's the same way with all vaccines, right? Like we're a flu shot, whatever it may be, from the point of transplant on, it's less effective. They know that. So you always will have to be more cautious, right? So, and again, that's like depressing, obnoxious stuff, but
yeah, it happened though.
It happened, and I'm here, and I'm great, right? Like, it happened, I'm here, I'm so grateful, and I'm so pissed off sometimes too, right? Like
yeah,
that's now, just life.
Aolani, this is one of the coolest things ever.
What?
You got to meet
your
donor's family.
I did.
Maria Hernandez lives every day with a pain inside. A piece of her heart was taken away with the death of her son Jose 5 years ago. And while that pain will never be gone forever, today she was able to feel a different emotion.
I feel so happy that finally I see the lady who received my son's heart. I feel so happy. I can't explain it better the way I feel, especially in these days of Christmas. It's the best present I had.
Today, Maria and her daughter Norma got to experience something special, something rare. They met Aolani Glover, the woman whose life was saved because of their decision to donate Jose's organs.
He's so happy. He's so happy to be in your body. Oh, my son.
Seattle resident Aolani was hoping to become a police officer, but the day of her test, something went terribly wrong. She collapsed. When doctors told her she was going to need a new heart, she had a tough time coping with what she was hearing.
When I was first told that I needed a new heart, I said, screw you, to be blunt, because I was 28 years old. I was in the best shape of my life. I had zero, I had everything planned out, and this was a complete and total deviation from the plans that I had made.
Several months later, she got the call. There was a donor heart. While Aolani was preparing for her new beginning, Maria, Norma, and their family were grieving the loss of Jose. At that moment, they had to decide if they wanted to donate Jose's organs. It was a very difficult decision. But when Maria learned that her son's tragic death could bring life to others, she knew what to do.
In the beginning, I was refusing, but now I'm very happy that I went myself to the DMV, and I am donation too. I am donated.
This Christmas, Maria knows she'll never be able to hold Jose in her arms again. But as she listens to his heart beating strong, she knows he will always be with her.
So I feel when I hug her, I feel like I was hugging my son again. After 5 years he died. Yeah, I know he's here. I know he's here. In her body, but he's here. And he's happy to see me again.
After hours of sitting and talking, they had to say goodbye.
She's my daughter now.
Aolani will return to Seattle, grateful for the chance to meet the women who helped save her life.
Today means the world to me. Second to the day that I received Jose's heart. I've always wanted to know his family and know more about him and be able to see his face. So it's absolutely incredible.
Maria and Norma walk away knowing they made the right decision and hope other families learn the powerful impact organ donation can have on everyone involved.
But now, after that, I feel that how important is to donate your organs, because that way you can give life to other people. It's very, very important.
How amazing of an experience was that? First off, what happened to him?
Oh God, it's sad. He was killed. Well, he was in a car accident. He got hit he was working. And he was working in Utah. He lived in Vegas at the time, was getting ready to move his family from Las Vegas to Utah for work, for a better job. He had a 2-year-old son and then an older stepson.
How old was he?
He was, he was born in 76.
Okay.
So he was actually 3 years older than me. So he was, if I was 28, he was 31, I think. His birthday's April. So he was born in April of 1976. So I can't do that math very well.
Whatever. Yeah, we already heard how good at math you are. And you're asking a guy that's equally as good at math. But anyway, yeah, so he was a few years older.
So he's 3 years older. A lot of people get a much younger heart, but he was 3 years older. He was in an accident. He was hit by somebody during the middle of the day who was high and drunk, who was a repeat offender, who went to jail for a pitifully short amount of time for having taken someone's life, and got out on good behavior, from what I understand of it. And he was, if I can compare it this way, as far as talking about like my family, helping to raise my cousins and being so engaged and such an important part of a family, he was the glue, kind of like I was the glue of my family, right? He very much was that with his family, with his mom and his sisters. They had an older brother, so basically the family had 2 boys, 2 girls. The oldest son was in El Salvador. Families from the 3 younger kids were born here, but family immigrated. Dad's Mexican, mom's Salvadoran, or maybe the other way around. No, I'm pretty sure. Not 100%, but essentially that's the breakdown. And they had immigrated here, and having his mom come listen, come stand, his sister, and I think I sent you the picture, his sister couldn't hear the heartbeat so well, and so she actually put her head on my chest to hear. Giving them the opportunity, and it's such a small thank you, right? Such a small thing for me to have done, but my dad and I flew down to meet them. Having them hear his heart still beating was this profound sense of, if I've ever not felt worthy in my life, that was it. And then also kind of developing the relationship with them and understanding the loss and never feeling that there's anything I could do. It was a gift that was given. It was a gift, right? And there are always horror stories, but organ donation by and large, legally and in the United States, it's an altruistic gift. His parents had actually said no when the hospital asked. His sister made the decision to say yes. And so meeting her for the first time, there's two sisters. I met the youngest first, but the one who was closest to him in age, they're very close, like 13 months apart, I think, 11, 13, very close in age. And they had been, you know, the loss and the feeling of, I know that they've heard from a couple of the other organ recipients, but being the one that, you know, they know probably the best and that I've gotten to know them, it really truly, as far as that goes, I don't think there's any way to, I still to this day can't fully communicate the feeling that I had of standing there with them, you know, with part of their just beloved son and brother and uncle and dad, right? There's just not words.
It's amazing.
And I wish there was more that I could do for them. I know that, I mean, it's not a requirement. That's not how it works, but I wish that there was more I could do. And they have been through so much loss. I spent Thanksgiving with the mom and both sisters, Maria and the girls, in 2016. We met in 2015, and then I spent Thanksgiving with them. And a couple of days after Thanksgiving in 2016, Maria's older son also passed.
Wow.
And I was there with her when she got the call from El Salvador that the older son had died.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm sitting there, you know, we're watching a telenovela on TV, and she gets this call, and she was just hysterical, rightfully so. And so I ended up being the one to call the girls.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm standing in the middle of again, like, oh my God, how is this happening? And B, what do I do? And then I asked, and of course they could hear her in the background, but to be the one to kind of step into that and then be like, oh, and I'm so sorry, your other brother is now gone. Like,
oh gosh.
Oh my God. Right? Like
that's awful.
Right? Like, how do you even, so for me, yeah, there's been a lot of, the thoughts about how do I reach out to them? How, you know, what can I give them? Really, there's nothing more I can give them besides just gratitude and love, right? Like,
yeah.
That's the best I can do, but I don't ever feel like it'll be, you know, I won't ever, I'm not a replacement. I'm not nearly a good enough human being to, you know, deserve anything other than the best expectations and the best I can do. But yeah, just the heaviness of that, just knowing that and kind of going through that with them too. Oh my God. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
So am I.
Aolani, you were talking, another thing that you mentioned was, what is the average? Because you said that you've lived a lot longer than most people even live with a heart transplant, right? Like, what is the average? You mentioned that the first year is obviously the most important part because your body's still trying to, like, do I like this heart, or do I just reject it, right?
No, 100% making it through that. That's 50-50. The average, the U.S. average has gone up a little bit. It's about 11 years.
Okay. That's wild.
So here I am at 16 years, but
that is crazy.
But I'm also younger, right?
Yeah.
Numbers are skewed because mostly, again, it's old guys, older ladies who have heart failure, right? But I feel like I wish that I could convey to younger people, because it's happening more and more with all diseases, that if you have a problem now, pay attention to it, because you don't want to get to the point where you need a new organ. Take care of yourself now. If you had a heart attack, if you have some weird numbers, if you haven't been to the doctor, go to the doctor. I'm not saying go become a professional patient or, look for issues, but get checked out. Go to the doctor, know your numbers. If you have numbers that are a little scary, get it under control, because you don't want to do this. You don't want to do this. Had I known how hard it was, I still would have done it, but I would have been more prepared and better prepared than I was, right? Like I would have done some things very differently, because it is not for wussies, right? Like this is not, you don't want to go, oh, I'll just get listed, or, oh, I'll wait. No, fuck no. You don't want to do life like this, because it is never the same again. It will never be the same. And so balancing that again too, that's the tough part, is the gratitude with the reality, and that it's hard, and that I wish it was different. And some people do. The minority of people really sail through. They go back to work. But a lot of people post-transplant aren't able to go back to work, and don't have the same quality of life that they expected or that they had before. That's just reality. And UW is it's a transplant center. It's one of the best ones, in the country, really, truly. It's here, California, and then the East Coast. There's not much in between as far as transplant centers that are, have really good numbers. So again, having lost my mom at 49, having gone through this at 28, my goal has always been to make it to 50. And I don't mean that like it's over at 50, but that's my goal. And that's a realistic goal, right? Like, and of course,
it's like the Queen song, "Keep Yourself Alive."
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. I wish though that more people understood how important it is to take care of this body, right? This mind and this body that you get. Because you don't want to replace parts. You just, right? Like
I sometimes, I'll wake up sometimes and I'm like, God, my fucking heart, like, my heart hurts. I don't know anything about hearts, but like I'm like, I don't know. I think my heart's right here. It hurts, but like, and then like I have like close friends that have had like massive heart attacks, and then I went in for a EKG, and they're like, were you like referred? And I'm like, no, but I want to skip that part. I just want to see, like, I feel like at one point I had this girl come down this one time, April Well, she's just crazy. She's like, wah! She's like, let's party. And I was like, I slammed a couple energy drinks. I was like, I can't keep up with this chick, and I don't do coke.
Do that.
I don't do coke. No, this is like back in the day.
Do that.
It's back in the day.
Either.
so I don't do coke. Thanks. Yeah. No, I had a second rock star, and I was like, I was literally like leaning over at this pizza place, and they're all like laughing. I was like, I'm serious. I think I'm like having like a heart attack here. So I went in, I told this guy that, and I go, hey, I just want to let you know, I don't know, this had to be like, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought I had a heart attack, and he goes, no, you're fine. And I was like, okay, well, that's good that I didn't have a heart attack back in the day. He's like, no, everything looks good. And I was like, all right, well, but every time like I have some like some uncomfortableness, I'm like, oh my God, like Aolani, oh God, like, oh shit. And then like, and then one of my buddies has like a massive heart attack. Yeah, it's scary, it's scary that, the body, I mean, because like they always say, they always kind of say like, listen, if you are feeling stuff, you're like the first responder of, something's not right. I mean, obviously I grew up my whole life not feeling this, and now I feel something weird. So I don't know. I'll probably get some more tests done, but it's probably just, hey, listen, I'm getting older too. So,
but you
never know.
But listen to your body. No, 100% listen to your body. Do not ignore signs.
Isn't that like another song? Listen to your heart.
It is. That was one of the.
Listen to your heart when he's calling for you.
No, 100%, and not just when it comes to love. listen to your body, listen to your heart, listen to what your body's telling you, because very often it's giving you warning signs before something big happens. I mean, sometimes there's just no, you know what I mean? You're done. But if there was a way to know, wouldn't you want to know?
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't you want, and I'm not saying like, you don't need to plan out every minute of your life, and you don't need to worry. You really don't, because hypochondriacs don't live longer. You know, you don't want to imagine things, because the way the brain works, the mind works, you can think yourself into illness.
Oh, right.
100%. You know, that was part of, that was one of the things where they were asking me, because I had, you know, had gotten divorced the year before, you know, like, are you sure you were, like, dude, I do not have a broken heart. It's not broken heart syndrome, right?
It's like they always talk about that when like a couple that has been married for like 70 years, like one of them dies off and they're like,
yeah,
it could be,
it's legit.
Yeah.
No, it's legit. But the reason for that is that's the thought and the emotion and the connection that we have. And your mind is so very powerful. That's one of the things for me that I've learned to trust my body, right? I've learned to listen to it. And now that I have kind of, right now I have some rhythm issues, and I can feel it, and it's kind of weird, right? It's a weird feeling. There's not enough for them to do anything about it yet, but I feel it. And a lot of people don't feel it's called a PAC, a premature atrial contraction. It's the top part of the heart. Does a little bit of a weird kind of a flutter. And it'll go on runs where I can count and feel it. And during my last stress test, they had me hooked up and it started to happen, and I was counting, and the nurse said, "Oh, can you feel that?" And I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, and she goes, "How many was it?" I was like, 6. And she goes, "Yeah, you're right."
Wow.
Most people can't feel it though. But when you do, I guess, kind of do that inventory of your body and make good choices, there's no guarantee, man. There's no guarantee for any of us, right? And by the numbers, I will tell you, I should not have made it out of Harborview. I shouldn't have made it out of the ICU, right? I shouldn't have made it. I've read through the chart. I've read through all of it, but somehow I did. So I have a belief in purpose, and I don't know what it's for yet. I really don't, other than that I hope that I've been good to other people and that I have helped other people in the time that I've been given. And 100% I give that to Jose, was his name, my donor, to Jose, because that life source, right? That pump, it's not just a pump, it's a piece of someone else that allows me to keep functioning with the ones that I love and to help keep taking care of people. And that seems to be my job, right? I don't have a real job, as I joke. You know, I'm medically retired. I would have loved to have been able to do more, but it has just been more of a challenge. And that's my genetic stuff, right? Like, that's the part of it that what led to happen and what the diseases that we now know. There are more issues that are different, but that's unique to me, right? That's not typical. And that's not, there's like 5 families in the world that have like what I inherited. So it's very, very rare. But the way it happened, has allowed me the opportunity to talk with other people. And I had my heart support group for about 10 years. I just recently shut it down because it was too much. Just making sure that I stood in the gap, as it were, for people if they weren't getting answers or didn't understand something. And doctors very often talk over people's heads, right? Like, it's very easy to have something, look at that, just like my hair, that it's a lot, and you only get a certain amount of time with your doctor. And we're not doctors, right? But being an educated, a fairly well-educated patient and knowing where to look for good information, I feel like that's something that I've learned how to do really well. And that helps me help other people. And so I hope that's what I've done. I hope that piece of it has that I've made a difference to someone else. And if I've done that, then the gift that I was given was appreciated, right? That it kind of redeems that, for me anyway. It allows me to go, okay, I didn't just waste time here, right? I actually did something good.
Absolutely.
And it's never going to be a big thing, right? Like, it's not going to be a big, like, I'm not. That's not the way it is. But it lets me be, it gives me the opportunity to do something better every time I wake up again, right? Like, hey, I woke up again today.
Yeah, no, it's like, what is that old soap opera, There's Only One Life to Live? I always think about that title, and it's like, it's such a good title because it's like, it really is. It's like one life to live, right? So like, and the fact that someone is, I mean, essentially kind of like living in you, right? Keeping you alive, which is cool. It's kind of like when, when those mechanics swap out like an engine to a different car, it's kind of like that. But, I think that with the takeaway here, like, and it is funny because, that the one life to live thing, you've known people that have died within the last, 16 years, you said? That you've had your heart, right? And it's weird. I've known many people that have died, right? So you can't guarantee life, but the fact that you were given the opportunity to extend your life and that you're actually, making a positive experience for others is awesome. And I think that's like really cool.
Too, so on the days when I struggle, and there are days and weeks and months that are really hard. I have struggled. And if I'm able to, through that struggle, and by just being stubborn as shit and holding on and saying, I can make it, that shows other people that even when it's hard, or you don't know your purpose, or you're struggling and it feels like too much, if you just need to hold on one more minute, one more hour, one more day at a time, that's all it needs to be. You don't have to overthink it. You don't have to come up with this, you know what I mean? You don't have to have a great big plan or be something great and wonderful. I'm helping walk a few other people home, and it does feel that way. Like, again, my grandpa, other people that, my friends, through Transplant, or, just lifelong friends, it feels like a lot of loss. Sometimes it feels really heavy, but I'm so grateful for the time that I've been given, right? It's having the time and learning to slow it down enough. Time's going to fly no matter what, but learning to slow it down and focus on, this is where this is my limited amount of energy for today, right? But this is where I need to be, and I'm doing something right? Yeah. Like, I'm doing something right. I don't know. I'm sure as shit not doing everything right, and I don't know what I don't know. Still, it feels that way anyway. I just am really grateful for the chance to keep trying and to keep learning and to keep being of help to other people, because that's what it's about, really. It's not me redeeming myself, because I'll never be able to do that, right? You'll never be worthy enough if you base your worth on what you do for other people. But if you're able to do something that helps them, and even if you never know, I think if you're acting from your heart in love and in compassion, you're doing something right. And that's the best I can do, right? And
I think it's what I've learned today is how important it is to be an organ donor.
Yeah.
Right? How hard is it to put that little heart on your ID card?
And that I'm living proof that as an organ donor, they still fought to save me just as hard. There's a lot of myths around donation and around care, and people love, all that stuff happens because people like to be scared. They like, we like horror movies, we like horror stories. But the reality of it is, even after the referral was made on April 2nd, they still kept fighting to keep me alive. And don't be afraid, because you can help so many people. And I would have been proud to be a donor, but I am so grateful to have become a recipient instead, right? I would have been really happy about being a donor and helping whoever I might have been able to help. And I still am a donor, by the way. I will always be a donor. But knowing that this is where we're at. This is where the technology is. We're not there yet. We still need other people's parts. And if you're dead, you don't need it. Right? If you're dead, you don't need it. You're going to be okay. You can leave some stuff behind and it will be helpful to other people.
I'm so amazed by all this stuff. It's so fascinating to me. I remember when I first moved here, probably about a year after I moved here, I started dating this surgical assistant. And I was so fascinated by what she did. She worked at the children's hospital, right? And she would do these heart transplants.
Part of the
like
team.
She's like, I have to go pick up a heart. So like she'd have to go right to the airport, to the down to the bottom of the plane, and then she would have to carry it like legit. She could never leave her it could never leave. And she would like literally just carrying this like she'd pick it up herself, put it in this like ice box.
That's how it works.
Like bring it, and I'm like, this is crazy. Like,
well, now they have machines
this is
to keep it
wild.
pumping rather than
so
putting it in the ice. But we're still limited by that time frame. You know what I mean? Like,
crazy.
It just was very recent where they were able to keep the heart perfused, keep blood flow to it, and be able to travel far enough that they were able to get it to someone.
Yeah.
Because if they can't get it to somebody in the right amount of time, it gets wasted, and we don't want to waste a gift like that.
We've seen this scene play out dozens of times in our medical stories. A donor heart on ice being transported in a simple igloo cooler.
We typically have about 4 hours to get from the time that we retrieve the organ to implantation in the recipient.
Standard hypothermic preservation limits the organ viability. Enter the TransMedics organ care system.
And the box has the donor's blood, and it perfuses and sort of pumps the heart.
The portable box that looks like a Tupperware container instead has high-tech capabilities.
It's several steps above an igloo cooler in the sense that it's really simulating what the body is like. So in terms of temperature, in terms of environment, it's being perfused with blood and not a solution. And so that allows us to really have an extended period of time, over double the amount of time that we would have for a typical window to perform the transplant.
Yeah, I remember she sent me this video one time, and she goes,
"Yep."
She would hit it.
No,
and it goes,
but it's real.
And I'm like,
that's it.
This is mad scientist shit. This is wild. So crazy, but yeah. So, all right. Well, Aolani, I just have a couple. I just have a question for you here. I know that I told you to come up with some. We want to lighten it up for the end of the show, right? We got to lighten it up here. So I asked you, what are your favorite heart songs? Songs about hearts.
The funny thing is, I was kind of going through this, like my favorite songs. The one that I think touches me the most is a more recent one. It's Just Like That.
It was your son's heart that saved me.
And I think she actually won a Grammy for it. Bonnie Raitt.
And a life you gave us both.
That one to me, because that is the feelings around specifically Transplant. But beyond that one, the others are, and I suck at bands, even though I love music. But it's the what's the song is Don't Go Breaking My Heart.
So don't go breaking my heart. I won't go breaking your heart.
And then Stop Dragging My Heart Around.
Stop dragging my heart around.
I love music. Most of what got me through the process was Pink.
You can run over me with your 18-wheeler, but you can't keep me down.
Pretty much everything of hers from pretty much early 2000s on.
Yeah.
And I actually was able to go see her in concert Mother's Day a couple years ago. Anything that gives you that sense of, I can do this, right? Like, I can do it. And I very often have, on tough days, I will put them, I've got like kind of a mix that's just, my iTunes.
Yeah.
That is, and it's not like, it's pretty varied. I mean, I don't know what that makes me, but I like all different genres of music, except jazz. Jazz belongs in elevators and nowhere else. Sorry, unpopular opinion.
There's lots of different variations of jazz.
All jazz belongs in elevators and nowhere else. So anyway, no, it's that feeling you get, and you kind of start to straighten your shoulders up, and you know that, okay, I can do it. Like, I can do this, right? Like,
yeah,
what's so important. And you love music, and you obviously, it's a big deal. I think it's so important, and people can bond that way, right? Like, we get to connect with other people through music, and it's something that heals us in a way, right? It can heal us, it can challenge us, it can break our hearts. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I was going to say it's those songs, and then pretty much anything that Pink has to say I can relate to, and it helped me get through the toughest part of, God, I hope it doesn't get any tougher than that. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's what I feel like in my life. Like, if I got through this, please don't make me go through anything worse than that.
Yeah, right. No, when you saw Pink, did she do the twirling stuff?
Yes. Like, oh my God, yeah, she's gorgeous. And
it's like two shows. Like, you get to see her singing and performing, and then doing like her acrobatics.
There was like a whole bed that swung out across, and then like, oh yeah, and then she's singing upside down, and you know what I mean, like that. And that to me is, I don't know. I guess I feel like there's so much that we can do that is supportive of, like, it's art, whatever it means to you, whatever it needs to be. But it's so important to me that we have access to that. Like, kids need to have music. Everybody needs to have music, right? Like, and music therapy, it's a thing. I haven't had real intensive therapy, right? Like talk therapy, but kind of my own versions of therapy, and music is a big part of it. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I know that's a way longer answer than you probably wanted. But
no, that's awesome. I love it.
So, what else?
Yeah. So I had a couple of heart songs I want to throw at you here.
Okay.
All right.
Go for it. Go for it.
All right. So the Bee Gees, How Can You Mend
a
Broken Heart?
How can you mend a broken heart? How can you stop the rain from falling down?
Yes.
Blondie,
sure.
Heart of Glass.
Actually, I thought about that one.
What about this one? What?
What is it?
Achy Breaky Heart.
I almost...
And if you tell my heart, my achy breaky heart, it might blow up and kill this man.
If I still lived in Ellensburg and
in Ellensburg, right? Yeah.
I'll give you. That's where I'd give you Achy Breaky Heart. All
right. Okay.
Yeah. No.
All right. Just a couple more here.
Yeah.
Groove is in the Heart.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, come on, you got to relate to E.T. Heartlight.
Turn on your heart light, let it shine wherever you
Dude.
I mean, E.T., didn't he have like some sort of, heart issue as well?
I don't know. Do you think I saw? You think I saw E.T.?
You didn't see? Oh, because that was the early '80s. You were probably not watching.
No,
that was during your non-pop culture.
Yes. I'm telling
Oh.
you, I am literally 20 years behind in everything pop culture.
Okay.
Just consider me a retiree before, like, that was my, like, I got to watch Donahue and The People's Court. And
I mean, can't go wrong with Donahue and People's Court.
no, but that was like what we watched. Or Mr. Rogers was, not even Sesame Street. I mean, seriously,
that's a
really,
shame.
truly. I learned to read and write and speak without Sesame Street, believe it or not. Yeah, no, I really, truly, I did not have, it's so weird. There's still some of those movies I haven't seen. And I know they're like big, huge part of most people's childhood, but not me. I'm so
All right.
so out of it. And honestly, I didn't even have my TV hooked up for like the first 6 months I was here. I know. Sorry.
You got other stuff to do, and there's lots of music that can fill in the gaps for movies that you haven't seen. So
yeah, I'm into music. I'm into music. But yeah.
All right, Aolani.
I love it. I'm so glad. Thank you for taking the time to
absolutely.
listen.
This was fun. I you know what? I learned a lot.
Did you?
I learned a lot. Yeah, I mean, okay. I learned that you were married.
I was married.
I didn't know that you were married.
I divorced the husband, but kept the family. That's important.
There you go. See, there's good in everything, right?
There is.
There's good in everything.
Oh my God! If you can't see the good yet, hold on.
Exactly.
It's there, right? Like even when you're just going through, this feels like
Wilson Phillips said in 1990. Hold on.
Hold on. One more day.
Hold on.
Hold on. One more day. Give it one more day. I can't even tell you how strongly I recognize, and the word I'm looking for is gone from my batty head at the moment, but like I feel it, right? Like hold on for one more day. And I have done that. I can't tell you how many times. I mean, really, truly, I've lost count. Like there have been enough days that have been that hard. And hold on, just one more day. Make it till tomorrow. Get through till tomorrow. We'll be okay. So yeah, for sure.
Fantastic.
It takes all kinds, right?
Absolutely.
It'd be very boring if we were all the same, and if nobody ever had any problems, and if we never had to. Do you know what I mean? Like if we never had to struggle, would we appreciate the stuff that we do have, or the people in our lives? I don't think we would. Not as much, right?
It's a good final thought.
Yay!
All right, Aolani. Thank you so much for coming on. You know what? I hope people watch this and learn a lot like I did. It was always fun hanging with you in college and kicking it with all our buddies and everything. And I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for waving at me out the window 25 years ago, right? No, for real. Thank you for. Oh, it was even longer than that. Oh my God, we're so old. But no, thank you for that. And honestly, if there's anything that people take from someone else's experience, I would be happy to talk to anybody that has questions, right? Like if there's something that comes up and somebody has a question because of what I've been through, or I can make it any easier for them, I'm always happy to spend that time.
That's awesome.
For real.
I'll hook anybody up with your contact information if they do have any questions.
Go ahead.
Or if they'd like to reach out.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you.
For Aolani, I'm Josh. And as always, thank you for being a friend.